Hello, welcome to the Pitt Post-Game Show here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We are your hosts, Chris Carter and Noah Hiles. Noah is there in Syracuse, right there on the floor, actually, with the whole view of the
Yes.
seats behind him and
Look at
everything.
this.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Look, he's on the court. Check him out.
Ah.
Doing everything. I'm Chris Carter. I stayed back in Pittsburgh for this one. Pitt, though, dropping a tough one here, letting this one get away, in my opinion. They had the control of this game, especially at halftime, then allowing a 14-4 run to start the second half, losing 81-73 to Syracuse, dropping to 9-4 and 0-2 in ACC play. So as always, we do our good, bad, and ugly. Noah, start us off. What is a good to pull out of this game for Pitt that comes across as a very disappointing loss?
Yeah. First things first, I'll say the bad and the ugly is the Wi-Fi here. So I apologize if I'm choppy at all. But I'll start off with something good. I don't know if you're going to highlight either of these guys, so I'll only take one of them. And if you don't, I'll highlight the other. I'm going to say Jalen Lowe was the good. Jalen Lowe played 17 minutes today, 9 points, 4 assists, and no turnovers. And while I'm not here to advocate for Bub Carrington to be benched, I do not think that would be in anyone's best interest. I do think it's time that we start seeing an uptick in Jalen Lowe's minutes. He's gotten better and better as the weeks have gone on, and I think this was his best game of the season, and it came against probably the best backcourt that this team has faced this year. He played some very key minutes in the second half, and he protected the basketball better than any guard on the team, better than Carrington or Lowe. So I think that that's one positive takeaway here, is that the backcourt depth, which was a concern with Johnson getting kicked out of school right before the year and with all of that they had to replace in that area, that is one good takeaway from this, is that he's really developing. And while Carrington needs to learn some things, and Leggett was by no means great today, Jalen Lowe delivered a solid effort. That would be my good. What say you, Carter?
I first of all, I agree on Jalen Lowe, the 4 assists, especially. He was creating for other guys, and then he was hitting shots at times.
One other thing I want to add here.
Sure.
Jalen Lowe was... Oh, excuse me. Never mind. That I was wrong by saying that. I thought he had a plus, positive, minus. He did not. He was -3. So I shouldn't have interrupted you. That's what I get. My bad, Carter.
Totally fine. All that to say, I thought he shooting fine off the bench, and also being able to get to generate offense for others. Big points for him without a single turnover. My good, if I'm to pick one here, I would say Guillermo Diaz-Graham on offense. 14 points, 5 of 9 from the field. Also 3 of 4 on 3-pointers. He was able to capitalize, and there was a drive also that he was able to get to the basket on. That's a really good sign for Guillermo, that he's able to play more like that and create points on his own. If he's able to do that, it's going to allow Pitt to have a more balanced presence on offense. And for a bit, I thought it was balancing a team that wasn't getting much from Blake Hinson or Ishmael Leggett, who they collectively shot 5 of 22 from the field. And I thought that was a big story of the loss in this game. Guillermo Diaz-Graham on offense, good. But flipping to the bad, I felt like the biggest problem outside of free throw shooting, which I'm sure we'll get to, was their paint presence on defense, especially in the second half. The first half, in the first like 5 minutes, they gave up 8 paint points really quick. And then Jeff Capel called a timeout. Things settled down, and they gave up total 16 paint points in the entire first half. And that was solid because they had scored 18 points in the paint. That was the balance that you want with Syracuse forwards and the signs that they brought to the table. That's a fine pace to play. But in the second half, where they gave up 51 points, 26 of them, more than half, came in the paint. And a lot of that came from late communications, not being able to deny the basketball, Fede Federico, and also Guillermo Diaz-Graham at times being out of position, not getting their head around in the right times. Also thought a big part of it was Will Jeffress getting in foul trouble early in the second half and him having to sit. He had 10 rebounds when he got his fourth foul. That still at the end of the game led both sides, and that was a big part of the game too. But Jeff Capel, I think, made some good in-game adjustments to get to zone and to get some confusion on Syracuse and to slow things down. But at the end of the day, he couldn't find ways to get Guillermo Diaz-Graham and Fede Federico enough chances, or get them to get enough stops underneath. And that allowed Syracuse offense, when it did hit lulls in its shooting, it was able to find inside looks. And that's what eventually led to their runs that gave them the final lead.
Yeah, to build upon your point before I get into mine, I mean, the front court's a problem on this team.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned that Guillermo was good offensively, and he was, but he's nowhere near as good as he needs to be offensively if he's going to play this way on the defensive end. I mean, he turned the ball over 3 times. That's something that needs to be mentioned. And then you talk about on the defensive end, like you said, Carter, when Syracuse comes out, they score 8 points quick in the paint. And then the adjustment that Capel made was subbing in Will Jeffress. That guy was electric in the first half. He had 7 rebounds in the first half. He had a plus minus of plus 12, and he took over the game early on, and he helped everyone. And it's really unique to see the situation that Pitt is in, because you talk about, or we don't talk about, they talk about, Capel, his players talk about how they need to be tougher, they need to have a little bit more tenacity, yet they do so well rebounding. And how is that? And I think it really stems to 3 guys. It's Federico and it's the 2 twins. They need to be tougher down low. Federico, minus 19 in the second half, and he only played 10 minutes. That's unacceptable. I'm sorry. And just wasn't great. Also, on the note of plus minuses, I checked again. Jaland Lowe was +2, so I was right. And I'm glad I interrupted you.
Get it together, Noah.
I'm hungry. Anyway, we'll get on now to my bad. I'm just going to say Blake Hinson in the second half. I mean, 0 of 7 from the field. You can't have that. You can't have that. And we talked about how, or I wrote about it in my game preview, how, hopefully if you're Pitt, Hinson got his bad effort out of the way against Purdue Fort Wayne in a game where Pitt's defense was on point and they were able to overcome him only scoring 5 points. But he goes 0 for 7 from the field in the second half on the road in a key ACC matchup against a rival. 0 for 5 from 3. Outside shooting is what allowed Pitt to build a lead in the first half. I believe they shot over 50% from 3 or something close to it in the opening half. And when he's going cold, when Carrington is, I think, showed a little bit of a display of losing confidence in that second half, and when you're getting beat down low and you're without your best defender because of foul trouble, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what happened in those final 20 minutes, really the final 19 and a half minutes. Because after that first bucket where they went up by 11, it was all Syracuse. Carter, what's your ugly?
I'll go with free throw shooting. I mean, here's the thing. With all the other things that went against Pitt, Blake Hinson being ice cold, Ishmael Leggett being ice cold, again, 5 of 22 for 2 of your most important players. That is tough to overcome. I think 15 turnovers was a season high on the year. None of that would have mattered if they just hit their free throws, because 11 of 24, they missed 13 on the game. They lost by 8. That right there, keeps you in the game and makes this a lot more competition. And you even saw, and I give credit to the heart and effort of Pitt's players, because they were fighting to the end. In the final minute, when you could have easily just used Cade and said, "Oh, this is over. Let them run out the clock." Guillermo Diaz-Graham gets a steal. They get a pop pass to Jaland Lowe. He hits a 3. All of a sudden, it's a 6-point game. That could have been a 2-point lead if they just hit not all of their free throws, but a reasonable amount of them. They shoot 46% from the stripe. That is the lowest percentage they've had all season. You cannot do that and think you're going to win games. You compound that with poor paint defense, bad shooting from your top guys, and the high amount of turnovers. You're going to lose a basketball game. Noah, what's your ugly?
Well, and to talk more about the free throws, a couple of those misses, I think they missed 2 front ends of a 1-and-1.
Yep.
And those misses came inside the final 6 minutes. They tied the game with 5 minutes left. And they had opportunities to build upon that, and they didn't capitalize. So in addition to only shooting 45%, they deprived themselves of additional opportunities to score by missing front ends of 1-and-1s. And it was everyone. I wrote about this in my game story. 6 different Panthers got to the line. Not one of them was perfect from the charity stripe today.
Yep.
That's unacceptable. My ugly is the road ahead. And it feels like football season saying that, just because we would always say,
we've seen it.
Yes. But I mean, this team doesn't have long to lick its wounds, and it ends 2023 in a rough spot, and waiting for it is a North Carolina team that's top 10 in the country right now and is pissed at the fact that it has to play Pitt again. I mean, it's lost its last 3 to the Panthers, and it's going to come in highly motivated. A lot of those guys are still around, Armando Bacot, RJ Davis, and they're going to be coming for blood. And Pitt is in a very vulnerable spot right now. we talked a lot about how this team had a good net ranking, how it had a good spot in KenPom. You can kiss those things goodbye. This team does not deserve to have a good net or KenPom rating, because yes, it beat the brakes off of bad competition, but we're entering a new year now. Tomorrow is the final day of 2023. Pitt is going to head into 2024 without a quad 1 or a quad 2 victory. You can't have that. You cannot have that. So it had opportunities a little bit. I thought it had a pretty weak non-conference schedule to begin with. And when you lose to your top 2 opponents in the non-conference, West Virginia should have been a better opponent, but it didn't get, everything went wrong for them. And Pitt, that's out of Pitt's control. But it loses at home to Clemson, and it loses this one. You're now down. You're going to be down as far as the computer stuff goes, which hurt Pitt last year. And now you're down in a hole in the ACC play, which was its saving grace last year. And in order to dig out of that hole, you got North Carolina, 2 games against Duke, and a road matchup against Miami waiting for you in the next 30 days. Good luck. It's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy, and I agree they've dug themselves a hole. But I also think that this is the chance for them to step up and get a big win. Because if they beat North Carolina on Tuesday,
it's a lot better.
The whole tone changes, and that's why I don't think it's doom and gloom. But they have to start getting these wins. I don't think I saw people say, "Well, season's over," and I think that is very early to say, because there's plenty of teams who started a lot worse than this at 9-4, and then found ways to turn it up going into the season. I also, something you and I have talked about in our own time, the ACC is a lot better this year, and it's going to, and with their top teams performing better, they're being perceived to be better. So if Pitt can get to 20 plus wins with 500 ACC play this year, that's probably still a tournament team, because that was the advantage that the Big 12 had with West Virginia and Iowa State and those teams that had 500 or less records in their conference, and they still found a way to get to the tournament. So I don't put this completely out of way, but I think, again, we see a need for growth from this Pitt team. Fede Federico has regressed from last season, and that has to turn it around, or somebody has to step up there. I think Zach Austin's improvement can help the team. I think the Diaz-Graham twins, especially Guillermo, if they can keep pressing forward, there's a chance for the forwards to mitigate the disadvantages there. But this Pitt team needs their top scorers to be top scorers. They need Bub Carrington to play to keep growing in the right direction. They need Jaland Lowe to keep growing in the right direction. And I think those are things that can happen. Will they? That's what they have to prove, and it starts with bouncing back at home against North Carolina Tuesday night. He's Noah Hiles. I'm Chris Carter. This has been the Pitt Post-Game Show here on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's YouTube channel and our podcast network. Thanks to all those who've been checking us out. We hope that you have a happy New Year. Reminder, you can spend that New Year at Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. Be sure to go there now. You can try one of their 500 different available beers. 300 of those beers are local. 80 of those local beers are available on tap, and they're always switching new ones in and out, so you can try them. You can try new ones every single time you're there, and there's always new ones. Trust me, we know, because we're there. In fact, we were there just last week a few times.
Yes, we were.
Mike's Beer Bar. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you in the new year here on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's podcast channel. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.